Someone offered to take something off your plate and you said no before they finished the sentence. You've run that math so many times it stopped being math. Accepting would mean owning something, or looking less capable, or showing exactly where the gap is. So the no arrives before your brain catches up. That reflex has a name. It is hyperindependence, and you may already know the term because almost every conversation about it happens in the context of relationships. I want to talk about it at work, where it is very likely the reason you are still in the same role. I led inside Fortune 500 finance and technology for 33 years. I did not know this pattern had a name until it had already built my entire career. You probably already had this conversation. Your manager tells you that you're doing an incredible job, that the team genuinely could not function without you right now, that the timing just isn't right for a move. You leave with a compliment and a holding pattern. And it takes a few days to notice they were the same sentence. The same hyper independence that got you praised early works against you at senior levels, and it never announces the shift. You have not become less capable. The organization has become more dependent on you staying exactly where you are. You are so reliable that promoting you starts to look like creating a problem rather than solving one. You stop being a name on a succession plan and become part of the load bearing structure. And load bearing structure gets maintained where it is. You solve the problem before you bring it to your boss, because arriving with an unsolved problem feels like arriving with evidence. The rest you technically delegate and then follow up, adjust, or redo yourself anyway. Over time, your team learns the unspoken rule. It does not have to be exactly right because it always gets caught. None of that reads as a flaw on a performance review. It reads as excellence. That is precisely the problem. This pattern does not live where willpower operates. It lives in the part of your nervous system that was trained through direct and repeated experience that needing something from another person was a liability you could not afford to show. That kind of training doesn't come with an update mechanism. It runs the same program at 50 that it ran at 25. Regardless of whether the rooms have changed, regardless of whether you are now senior enough that the original threat is barely a memory. The program runs because no one told it to stop. And it will keep running until something forces a recalibration. The rooms that built your career were not ambiguous about what happened when you showed the gap. You watched what it cost when someone asked for help. Not being sure stopped being something you were allowed to show. You did not decide to build this. Your nervous system built it for you, out of data it had been collecting since the first time you saw what showing the gap actually cost. I ran global teams for years while absorbing two people's worth of work, and I never once named it as two jobs. At one point, I had more than 40 direct reports, a budget that had been cut twice, and my manager's responsibilities on top of my own. I did not ask for more resources. Asking felt like admitting I could not handle what I already had. I did not push back on scope. That felt like the kind of thing that got you labeled as not a team player. I just did it. When I left, the organization hired three people to do what I had been doing alone. Three. Not because the work had grown, because it had always been three jobs, and I had spent years making it look like one. My work ethic is not the interesting part of the story. The interesting part is what an organization can get for the price of one role. By keeping someone who was trained never to say, I cannot do this without help. Here is the piece that gives the whole thing away. Think about the last time you asked someone on your team to take something on. They said, "I'm not sure I can take on any more right now." And you said, "That's okay." And you meant it. When someone from your team asked for help, you found them help or moved the date. Now try to remember the last time you said, "I'm not sure I can," to anyone above you. You have the evidence. You watch that sentence get used in front of you, and it costs the person nothing. You grant it to yourself without hesitating, and you still cannot say it. That gap is the whole diagnosis. You are not missing information. You already know the room is safe. The knowing does not reach the reflex. I wrote SoulFIRE Leadership around the patterns women are taught to call strengths long after they stopped serving them. The first 2 chapters are linked below. Nothing about this pattern breaks. It does not produce a crisis you can point to. It produces a version of the next 5 years that looks almost exactly like the last 5, with slightly less margin each year. The same role, the same reliability, the same conversation about timing. The cost is not dramatic, it's cumulative, it compounds. And the organization keeps building itself around the version of you that never asks for anything. Hyper independence got you here. It built the career and the reputation. None of that needs dismantling. But you did not build a career out of absorbing what other people could not carry so that the next chapter could ask you to do it again. The fact that you have never had to ask for help is not proof that you do not need it. It is proof that you have been very good for a long time at making sure no one found out. So here is what actually moves something like this. You've probably already decided to change it more than once, and the reflex kept firing anyway. Decisions do not reach it. A nervous system updates on evidence, and only on evidence it can afford. Something small enough that your system does not treat it as exposure. Repeated often enough that it becomes the norm. That is the whole mechanism. It is unglamorous, slow, and what holds. Which means the first move is not asking for help. It's watching the refusal. The next time someone offers to take something off your plate, do not change the answer. Count how long it takes you to say no. You are not fixing anything yet. You are collecting the first piece of evidence that the reflex is a reflex and not a judgment. You cannot update a program you cannot see running. In the comments, name one thing you are still doing yourself, even though you know it's no longer yours to carry. Not the whole story, just the task. And if you want a clear picture of where this is running in your leadership, the SoulFIRE Leadership Audit measures what leading is costing you across 6 dimensions, including the overfunctioning this video is about. Not because you are doing something wrong, because a pattern like this compounds until the cost is hard to reverse. The link is in the description.